Welcome to Moonbeaming, a podcast about magic, creativity, the tarot, lunar living, and more. I'm your host, Sarah Faith Gottesdiener, and I'm so happy you're here. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Moonbeaming. I'm so stoked you're here. My name is Sarah Faith Gottesdiener. I'm your host, and this is a podcast where we explore magic, spirituality, creativity, tarot, living, laughing, loving, crying, the whole 9 yards, right? Today, we have a really special episode that I'm so excited about. I cannot wait for you to hear it. First, I just had a couple of announcements that I wanted to share. The first is, please review the show, subscribe, review. Everyone who leaves a 5-star review gets entered into a giveaway, and each month there is 1 to 3 winners announced, and we pull from everyone who's ever left a review. So this month, I'm going to announce the winner next week, and the winner gets a mini tarot reading with me, which I'm really excited about. So you can come with your burning questions, and hopefully myself and the cards can answer them. So if you haven't already left a review, I would really love it if you do. The reason why reviews are important for independent podcasts is it's an algorithms world. We're just living in it. It's getting a little scary, honestly, if I'm being honest. But yeah, reviews boost algorithms, which help other people find the podcast. And because I am completely all word of mouth and there's not some media company backing me, it's just me. I'm the media company backing me. I really appreciate reviews, subscribing, downloads, forwarding to a friend. If you love the podcast, please consider doing one of those things. And if you've already done that, I hope you can feel the gratitude pouring out from my heart. I am so grateful to everyone for being here and blessing me with your attention and your time and your energy. I am so grateful. I am so appreciative for all of the support with this project and with all the other projects, really. I'm having a really fun time with this project. I'm going to keep doing it until it's not fun or I want to do something different. So I'm excited for at least 3 seasons, if not 4 or 5 or more. And the way that you can help me do that is by subscribing, reviewing, telling a friend, and also joining the Patreon. I do have a Patreon. The link is in the show notes. It's the Moon Studio, and you get tons of goodies, which you'll find out when you click on the link, so I won't get into them there. That is how you directly support the podcast, public listener radio style. So if you have the means and you feel called, you can click the link and you can support me on Patreon, and I will be so appreciative and so grateful for you. I think that's it. I think that's what we've got. The guest today is my friend, Marlee Grace. You might know Marlee from her Instagram, from her books. Marlee Grace is a dancer and writer whose work focuses on the self, devotion, ritual, creativity, and art making. Her practice is rooted in improvisation as a compositional form that takes shape in movement, videos, books, quilting, online courses, and hosting artists. Marlee's Instagram dance project, Personal Practice, has been featured in the New York Times, Dance Magazine, Vanity Fair, the Huffington Post, and more. Marlee's most recent book is Getting to Center: Pathways to Finding Yourself Within the Great Unknown. I will put a link to Marlee's website in the show notes, of course. Marlee and I have been friends for about 5 years. Marlee's one of my favorite people that I know, and this conversation is really great. We talk about how it's weird to call yourself an artist. We talk about spirituality and art. We talk about creativity, and Marlee shares a really, really cool practice that she's been doing that I'm definitely beginning right now, right about meow. We talk about business. We talk about money and money healing and what Marlee did and how she went about making some shifts, and I share some stuff. And it's just a really, really awesome conversation. Marlee is so generous. Marlee is one of the most generous people I know with what she shares, how she shares, and how she shows up. So hopefully you'll enjoy this conversation as well. And we end with a beautiful little reading about making more space and time for timelessness, which is really interesting. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's a little bit Hierophant, yeah? We also talk about how showing up authentically in your business is one of the best business decisions you can make, which is another theme of the Hierophant, which I'm now remembering. The Hierophant workshop is available for download in the shop if you want to get into some of these themes of authenticity, connecting to your source, practical stuff, magical stuff, deepening into this tarot archetype. You can pick that up by clicking the link in the show notes. Yeah, because we talk about some themes around authenticity, vulnerability, tapping into source, praying. There were some weavings of the Hierophant in our conversation, which makes a lot of sense, seeing that it's the year that we all are in. So without further ado, I am so excited to share with you my conversation with author, writer, friend, Marlee Grace. Hello, 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 and welcome to the show. We have a very, very special guest, one of my favorite people on the planet. Marlee Grace is here.
I'm here. Thanks, Sarah. You're one of my favorite people on the planet.
Marlee, for folks who don't know you, can you just introduce yourself briefly? Tell folks what you do, who you are.
I can. My name is Marlee Grace, and I am a writer and a dancer. Those are the easy words to describe myself. My background is mostly in dance and improvisation, and then I make a living writing in the digital space, writing books, and I also teach people how to quilt. Is one of my favorite parts of my job, and I have a quilting practice, and I also teach people about creativity and digital parts of business, and that part I'm always still sort of grappling with or something. But those are the things I do. I'm gay. I'm a dog mom. I love life. That's who I am.
Yeah. And we'll talk about some of the grappling in this interview.
Wait.
I wanted to first talk about being an artist, and I was hoping you could share a little bit about how you would define being an artist, what creativity is looking like for you these days, anything that you think of, because I think artist is a pretty broad term. And I think that it also can be a fairly loaded term sometimes. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it today. I know they will probably change in another week or month or year.
In another 2 minutes. It's so, I feel like it's going to just be my life's work to accept that I am indeed an artist. If you didn't notice, I introduced myself as a writer and a dancer and a quilter and all these other words. And I have gotten more comfortable also just being like, yeah, I'm an artist. Of course, I think for me sometimes, because I structure my business where I don't make money selling art specifically. I guess you could argue that writing is art, but in terms of my practice, to me, dance and quilting is sort of my art practice. Writing and teaching is another part of my practice, but I don't sell quilts and I make very little money dancing, and that's fine with me. And so, that's, as we will discuss, the hook of capitalism, that like, am I an artist if I'm not making money from the art itself? Which is also, of course, funny that I have helped thousands of other people accept that fact about themselves. And I still tend to that part of myself every day. But to me, being an artist is really about paying attention and noticing, and sort of taking that noticing practice and turning it into something else, which could be an online class or writing or a newsletter. So,
yeah, I think that one thing that I just think about because I feel similarly, like I do call myself an artist because it's the only identity I've ever had that I like, other than being queer or like Jewish or having chronic illness, or, here I am, I'm a dog mom. I'm like, love vegan ice cream. No, I'm just kidding. Like it's the identity that's always felt like, that makes the most sense to me. But I think that what we see, or hopefully as like media and capitalism kind of collapse and media changes, and there's less gatekeepers into the so-called art world. I think that the definition of artists is also changing, which I think is great. And also I think a lot about just the idea of creativity, which anyone is creative. Like humans innately are creative. This is how we survive. So I think that maybe some of this tension or the stigma around that word is a lot of stuff with the link between, I don't sell my, art has to look this one way, and I don't sell it, or I don't make a living off of it. And also I think there's the connection or the shame between art, or not feeling like, I'm speaking just for myself right here, like not calling myself an artist because I maybe don't do art every day or even every month. And I feel like there's like, well, if you're not in your practice, or if you're not working on something all the time, you're not, in quote, like an artist, because you are what you do and all of this stuff. But the fact of the matter is, it's difficult to do that if you're trying to make money or running a business or supporting a partner or sick or have to work a day job or all of the things, right? So that's just kind of my thoughts. I wanted to ask you, what are some practices that help you create?
Something that has really helped me lately is not thinking, like sort of trying to rewire some of my habits. So the practice, and this goes not just to making art, but like walking the dog or cooking dinner, to be like, I'm not even going to think about cooking dinner. I'm going to just take carrots out of the fridge. Or like, I'm not going to actually think about making a quilt, but I am going to fold this fabric and make sure my sewing machine is threaded. Or I'm not even going to think about exercising, but I am going to open my computer and type in my exercise class URL. And so I feel like that has really changed my life the last few months, to just keep it in like the first task. And, I learned to ski this year, and every time before I go, I would get so nervous and want to like cancel on my teacher or tell my partner I was too busy. And I would be like, all I have to do is put my wool leggings on. That's it. I don't have to actually ski. Of course I did every time. Or like, even thinking about like, I don't even have to go down the mountain. I just have to sit on the lift that takes me to the top. And that's one of my favorite parts. So I'm like, I get to do my favorite part right away. So yeah, I think just keeping it really simple instead of thinking about the pressures of doing the thing.
I love that so much. The first thing I thought of when you were speaking was, have you read that? I forget the name of it, but it's by the dancer Twila Tharp.
Oh yeah, look, it's next to me somewhere. Yeah, it's around here.
What is it like? Is it called The Creative Habit? Is it literally called The Creative Habit? You're right, The Creative Habit. So like she talks about her ritual, like she gets up, or not, probably not anymore, bless her soul, but like she gets up at 5 a.m.
Yep.
at like some ungodly hour, or maybe 5 a.m. is the godly hour,
Yes.
And then hails a cab. Like that's her ritual. It's not like, stretching, like that's what. And so I love that. And I also love that because what a way to get out of your own way.
Yes.
All I need to do is open the computer and write one sentence.
Mm-hmm.
All I need to do is walk to the refrigerator and get a glass of water. I love that so much. And it's so zen and it's so in the moment. Like it just keeps you in the moment, which I think is really important too, because one thing that I think I will speak for myself. One thing that capitalism has really done a doozy on me is like seeped into everything I have to do has to have an end goal. Like if I walk the dogs, they have to be exercised and happy.
Yeah.
Like it's literally insane. It's not, oh, we're walking the dogs, I'm looking at the flowers, like look, they're so cute. It's like, oh no, this is like to optimize their energy or like, and I'm really trying to really notice where things that aren't even related to hourly things or, like it's put such an expectation that everything has to be for something, and when that happens, I think parts of us start to die or get frozen or really scared. And so I think I know I'm definitely going to be trying I just have to get out the carrots. I just have to put the leashes on my babes, on my dogs. So thank you for that. That's such a good share. And I'm sure people will love it as well. And I wanted to ask you about if you see any links between your spiritual practice and art. But now I want to back up because I'm curious. And I want to ask you about like when you think about your spiritual practice, at least now, like currently, what is your spiritual practice?
Yeah, my spiritual practice is so rooted in, 12-step language and programs and just this idea of God being, the spirit of the universe and this just really expansive definition. And I do morning pages pretty much every morning and have for many, many years. And I write 3 pages longhand before I do anything else as suggested because I'm a good girl for Julia Cameron.
Do you read them back? Do you go back and read them?
No, absolutely not.
She says no.
She says no.
Says not,
other people, it's so interesting. I'm leading an Artist Way book study right now, and people really have their own ways of doing it. And I obviously respect, admire, and support that. And for me, I am like, I take the suggestions as they are written, and that's just how I do it. But that's really my journaling practice is my spiritual practice. My morning pages are basically, I literally write down like, good morning, God, it's me, Marlee. Like, I'm like, immediately would like to be in collaboration with my higher power. And I'm sitting next to like a very active, clear, clean altar right now, which I don't always have. And I feel like I've really returned in the last month or so to my altar practice, to pulling cards, having money on the altar, candles, essences I've made, lists around, rocks, things that are special to me. There's some stickers. And yeah, I think, but praying, I really love to pray. I love to talk about praying. I love to talk about God, and I do it all day long.
I love that. I love that so much. Thank you for that share. What do you think the links are between art, creativity, and spirituality for you?
Yeah.
Or in general.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think 2013 was the first time I went through the Artist Way, and it was definitely the offering to me was like, and I think Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert was another book that sort of like, we love Liz. We love Big Magic.
Liz. Dear Liz.
Dear Liz.
It's me, Sarah. Can you hear us?
And I think that kind of the combination of those books was, it's this idea that it's like, it's the getting out of your own way. It's like, this isn't about you. Like, this is what you are asked of by spirit, and you don't even know who you're going to help yet. Like, stop making art because you think it's some like navel gazing thing. It is what spirit has called you to do, and sharing it either privately or publicly or just with your cat or your dog, is a part of that process. So when I feel spiritually fit, I feel a lot more able to both access my art making and give myself permission to do something else and to be like, today's not an art day. Or, last month I didn't really work on quilts because I was focusing on a really different part of my business. And because I felt spiritually fit, I wasn't an asshole to myself about that. So
yeah, I love that. I love that so much. So now you kind of brought it up. I wanted to talk about being an artist. We're going to just claim it for this interview.
Wow.
You can go call yourself something else later.
Great.
Being an artist running a business. Let's talk, because, you and I have been friends for a while, and I value you definitely probably more than you know. You are one of the most important people in my life. You model honesty, integrity, curiosity. Like, you're one of, I guess this is a quality that a lot of my very good friends share, but what I really love about you is I feel like I could bring you anything, and and you would not, maybe you do, but I never feel judgment from you. Like, I never feel like, oh, you're a bad person, or, oh, you should be punished, or, oh, you fucked up, or whatever. And I really, really, really love that about you. And one of the things I also really love is that, we can have these very honest conversations about, tensions. And you and I kind of have this tension because I think, and I want to hear from you, but I feel like for me, like it was never in my life's plan to run a business. Like, I was never like, oh, I'm going to run a business. Like, that was never what I wanted. Definitely not, like, I'm putting this in quotes, a quote, spiritual business. It was definitely not my plan, and I think that, like, you and I have a lot of tension, conflict, and I would also maybe say, like, unresolved kind of thoughts and feelings. And one thing I just want to put out there before hearing from you is this idea I've been thinking about that's been making me feel just like a lot more at peace, which is because I'm feeling into the Lover's Year next year, which is very different, and because I have to for the planner.
Right,
like, I'm like in conversation with that energy now. And the Lovers is like, it's okay to not be resolved. Like, resolution isn't the point. Sometimes it is. And, so I just want to put out there that I think it's actually fine for us to feel unresolved about these things. But I wanted to explore this with you. And I wanted to start on the positive tip. And how do you think that being an artist, coming from a creative background, neither one of you or I never went to business school. Like, we don't know anything about it. How do you think being an artist or creative makes you really good or great at running a business?
Oh, yeah, I love that. It's funny because a joke I often make is like, LOL, I have a BFA in dance and built this business, and I act like it's a joke, like they're so at odds with each other. But I think I'm absolutely great at my job because of the amount of training I have with, like, being embodied and improvising and pivoting and choice making. And, I was just so grateful to my dance professors and dance teachers and mentors that I still have who, that learning has never ended for me. I continue to be in community with other dance improvisers. And I think it's how I stay malleable and flexible in running a business, because it's really confusing to teach yourself those things. I started Have Company, which was my shop and residency, which is where we met 5 years ago. And, I started it in a camper in 2012. And it wasn't because I was like, I, Marlee Grace, would like to be a business owner. It was because I was like, wow, there's not really a place for my friend to sell her rag rugs, or there's not really a place where there's zines in this town. Like, I just saw these holes, which is what I was taught as an improviser, was like, what does the dance need? Like, oh, it's missing this thing. Maybe I go in, or like, oh, there's too much of this thing. Maybe I step out. Right. And so, And my learning curve, which I'm sure we'll pivot to eventually in this talk with money, is I have a real resistance to adulting. And that's what the last couple months have really been for me, is like really facing some money stuff and some disorganized systems in my business that I've just kind of been like, la-di-da, avoidance, hee hee hee, and having to be like, you know, because that is where in my family system, education system, etc., I did not receive training or instruction on how to do, and am doing it now. So
yeah. I wanted to just sort of pin a couple things you said that I found really interesting. One was the beginnings of your business as like fulfilling a need, like you not seeing it, and also wanting to be of service, and also wanting to stay in community or to serve a particular community, right? At multiple ways, right? Not just the artists you were selling stuff, but people buying.
yeah.
That's, there's like this nice little ecosystem that you are interested in creating. And as you were speaking, I know very little about business, and everything I kind of learned about business, I learned after the fact, like in reverse.
Yes.
And as you were describing it, I'm like, oh, that's what businesses tell you to do. They tell you to find a niche. But like the difference between, I think, you and I being artists is we just intuitively can pick it up. Whereas like these annoying business people have their spreadsheets and they're like, oh, I see a gap in wellness and a gap in tech. What about tech and wellness? Or, whatever the things that they do in their meetings with their,
Yeah.
And I think the other really cool thing for me, at least, being an artist, a creative and intuitive, which you are as well, running a business, is like, we don't steal shit. Like our businesses are unique. Like we are not looking at this person or that person. We are not like trying to rip off someone else's marketing idea or whatever it is. And I think that like more and more, this is a Hierophant year. So Hierophant is about so many things, but it's also about authenticity and about like being from the source, right? Like, and so when there's like a copy of a copy of a copy, first is that you're not being in service to yourself. Like how can you get to your source if you're just looking over here, looking over there, spreadsheeting, Googling, like, like following all of these people on Instagram that you're copying or even subconsciously, right? It's not even conscious. It's not even conscious sometimes. It's like, I want to belong, or what they're doing looks really beautiful and shiny. We could be here all day and I'll leave that there. But I think that it's really important. Like for me, I want to run my business because I want to create my work and I want to like connect to what I have to offer in terms of service and guidance. Like, I don't want to just be like seeing what works for someone else or what's easier for someone else. Like, I want to tap into like my ease or like my unique gifts. And I think that on one level flies in the face of traditional business or marketing or whatever they want us to learn or do. But on the other level, going back to ideas about spirituality in the long run, I think that authenticity for me personally is like much more important than any kind of, oh, this is an easy money-making opportunity that I'm going to try, or, oh, I'm going to be like this business because blah, blah, blah. So I think that's a real gift for us being like really creative because we can bring that forth,
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, what do you think makes it difficult being an artist running a business?
Well, it's funny because I love everything you just said and run up against that feeling of like, oh, should I be tapping the well and making the big bucks? And
same.
Yeah.
Same. I'm like, should I just like try to make $5 million by like looking to see what other people have done? Because that's what other people do,
I think it's part of why maybe this is a little tangential, a little off topic, but it's why when people call me an Instagram influencer, I get extremely defensive because, and I do not shame anyone who has done this, and maybe I will do this at some point, but I have never exchanged money to post. I think people get confused when they see a blue check mark or a nice feed and they're like, oh, she's an influencer. And whatever. I literally already hate that I brought this up. I'm like, edit it out. But it's like, yeah,
I think it's top. Like, I think it's timely.
It's like, yes, I'm influencing and I'm an artist who's good at my job. Like, that's why I do that's why it looks the way it looks or something. Like, I think to me, it's really, there are certain parts of, and we talk about this a lot in our friendship of just like I have principles and I have morals around my business that are way more important to me than making money. And that is hard for me sometimes because it has meant there's not always a ton of money in my bank account. And
100.
That's just how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 100. And I want to kind of just say, and I know you're not saying this, but I want to say it, Instagram influencers, actually, like, that job is so hard.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
I got asked.
I'm sure it is.
I recently this year was the first year I ever did, in quote, a sponsored post.
Yes.
It was super in alignment, like, small women-owned business, like, paid me well, treated me well. There was no, it felt in alignment,
Yeah.
Man, that was hard. Like, it was not, so I also want to say, like, being an Instagram influencer or creating media for YouTube or whatever folks do, whatever the youth are doing these days, like, it's hard. Like, that's a job.
It's a job.
And
it's a job.
And it requires talent. Like, so I just want to be, like, really clear about that.
Thank you. I feel like that's where our friendship is strong, is that you or me, we often clarify for the other, what maybe sounded like we were trashing someone, but we're not.
No,
I'm just clarifying that's not what I do.
We
love you if you're influencing. We love you.
We love you. Yeah. Yeah. All influencers are welcome here, unless you're stealing from us, in which case I think you need to do some prayer. I think you need to check in with your source and see what's going on. So, yeah, I mean, on that tip, that's what I wanted to talk a little bit. I wanted to close by talking about a couple other things that I think are important and are all on this topic. But I think what you're getting at is another topic I wanted to talk to you about, which is around definitions of success. What I hear you saying is a definition of being successful. And again, another loaded word, success, right? Artist, success, another loaded word. But a definition of your success is doing it in a way that feels ethically aligned for you, moral, that feels like you're being of service, that feels like your gifts are being utilized. Like, have you had any recent, inspirations or new definitions around success?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a little bit more like a traditional success marker, but in April, when I taught The World Needs Your Online class, my online class about making an online class, it was really nice to have people giving me feedback that was like, great, I am unblocked. Here is my class and I'm going to change the world. And, they showed up to class being like, I'm a scared little baby and think I'm trash and have no fucking ideas. And then in 4 weeks, they were like, here's my brand new website and my online class I'm launching. And some of them being like, and I sold it out and I made thousands of dollars. And that felt really beautiful to me, to be like, yes, that is what I want to do as a teacher, is show other people the success markers. I would say outside of my business, I often try to personally stand by that, if all I did today was stay sober, it was a good day. And so that is, this week that this podcast comes out, God willing, will be my 10-year sober anniversary. And, that has always felt like and I think just the big number feels like such a success marker to me of like, and exactly how I apply to my creativity is like, I just, I didn't get 10 years by hoping I would get 10 years. I got it by just not drinking one day at a time, sometimes an hour at a time. So yeah, those are some success markers.
Yeah, those are super huge. It's time for me to tell you about a sweet and magical greeting card company called Piccola Arte. I love Piccola Arte. They're beautiful and unique cards remind me that sending a greeting card can be a powerful act of love and care. Piccola Arte is a small family business run by sisters and owners, Lizzie and Steph. Their sweet, original watercolor designs are printed on high-quality watercolor paper to create the loveliest pieces of art that you can share with the loved ones in your life. These cards have a one-of-a-kind, handcrafted look, and there are so many designs to choose from. There are birthdays, anniversaries, thank yous, celebrations, holidays, just because, and so much more. Check them out at Piccola Arte Works on Etsy or follow them on Instagram at Piccola Arte Works. That's PICCOLAARTE. And use the code WITCH, all caps, for 15% off when you spend $10 or more. Join me in supporting this awesome little family-owned, women-owned card company and share a small act of love with the people in your life. I have to talk about money with you because here you go. Yeah, another. Well, and I also think like I'm doing more stuff around money. I'm actually later today, I'm teaching a class about money. I'm going to teach a long class about abundance. I also am feeling called to teach classes around business, like running a business and things. I feel like you and I have both, the same year you started Have Company, I started working for myself. Mm-hmm. So we've been doing it long enough that we've sort of gotten to a place where I think we have knowledge to share, mm-hmm. That isn't like knowledge from other people, mm-hmm. That we're hearing, like I'm zipping my lip around that. But I do want to talk about money because I have witnessed you do a lot of deep money healing since we first met. You really have made that one of your focuses. And you really have seen a lot of shifts and a lot of progress around that. And I was hoping you could kind of share your thoughts on, how you came to heal some wounds, what you think they maybe were about, if there was anything that helped you or surprised you along the way, if you could just sort of share whatever you felt comfortable sharing.
Well, this is maybe my chance to reverse the friendship you don't know how much you mean to me moment, because in my online class, I was talking to them about like money stories. We were talking about money stories and like kind of unpacking them. And someone was like, can you what is your best resource? And I literally typed my friendship with Sarah Gottesdiener. And then I was like, I guess I should like link her book and podcast. But in my head, I was like, you just have to have a friend as good as Sarah, and she might not be taking new clients in friendship. So you might be shit out of luck. No. But literally, you and probably other people, but really you, I feel like for me, it's about being around. And I think this is for kind of unblocking or unlearning anything, is to really surround yourself with the other people who have already done it. It's like, I trust voices who are like, that was me too. And now I'm here. If you were just like, oh, I was just born abundant and have never struggled, I might be like, oh, all right, well, okay. It's sort of why alcoholics learn from other alcoholics. We don't go to people who have never had a problem with alcohol to learn about alcoholism. Although I do have a therapist who isn't an alcoholic. Anyways, okay. The point is, I feel like, what was the question?
Just like you really, I've really seen you come a long way, not just with healing stuff around money, like in the mind, in the nervous system, but like literally materially, like tangibly, you really like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've done a lot of clearing. Mm-hmm. You've done a lot of like cleaning up. You've done amends. You've done the inner work. You've made the shifts so that you can feel more abundant and like be more abundant. And I was just hoping, for folks out there who are wanting to maybe make some of those shifts, what do you think some of the money healing was about? Because in my class, I say, and I've said this elsewhere, I believe money is a symbol. Money is incredibly loaded, and money, when you don't have money, when you're broke, like I was, having to make your like weekly groceries on $34, like when you're counting every penny, when you're literally giving coins to the gas station attendant, you know what I mean? And like measuring out in your head how much you can drive that week, which literally that's where I've been. Money is money. Like it's not like money is like, I just need to pay this bill. But when you do get to a certain point where your bills are paid, there's a roof over the head, you can go out to eat a couple times a month, you have a little bit of extra money, you can kind of then understand that money is this symbol, I think, of many different things. And I think that by thinking about what money symbolizes, you can start doing, some transformation around it. And for me, like healing my money stuff, I'll go first to maybe give you some ideas, or I feel like you're like, for me, when I look back, both in subcultural spaces, like queer spaces or punk spaces or artist spaces, and also in spiritual spaces, like new age spaces, there's this real avoidance of money, and this real like money is bad. We have better things to do. We need to save the world, or we need to make art, or we need to pray, or we can't be so attached to money. And so I think that I don't really hear a lot of open conversations about it in this way. But what I'm going to say is, like, for me, doing a lot of money healing stuff, which I really needed to do, was actually spiritual. Like it actually helped me feel safer. It actually helped me with self-esteem stuff. It actually, like, because I could, and again, I've had other moments of healing, like around relationships or my intuition. I mean, in my trauma, I could be here all day, but money was one of the things, out of like 10 or 20 things that showed me that change was possible and that it is all connected. And we do have to have some kind of engaged or conscious relationship with how we make money, like how we treat money, how we think about money, if we respect money, and so on and so forth. So I was just wondering, like, what you think, kind of having made some shifts over years. Yeah, it took years.
Yeah, it took about 9. I mean, it took about from 2012 till this last month. Here's the thing that I've really learned is that I'm extremely lucky that the way I make money is doing what I like to do, what I love to do. Pretty much every dollar I have made in the last 9 years, which almost chokes me up, is doing what I love to do. And so if I'm under earning and not making money, it means I'm not doing what I love to do. It means I just channeled that shit right here, baby. Never been heard. I'm looking at my friend Sarah's face. Her eyes are wide. Exclusive, podcast baby.
Exclusive.
And I do want to shout out a book called Emotional Currency, A Woman's Guide to Building a Healthy Relationship with Money, which is by Kate Levinson, who's amazing. Former owner of the Point Reyes bookstore. Shout out to one of my favorite bookstores. And, again, a book with woman in the title. It feels like a book for anyone. But, and this is something she mentions in the book that really got me. Again, I read it 3 years ago. It took me a second to integrate, but was like, if you have the privilege to earn, which I do I think that falls into like my privilege as a white person, as a cis person, as a person with a huge platform. When I'm not earning, that is not of service to people who are actually in poverty and cannot crawl out. And so when I'm earning, I mean, I can't believe how much, tens of thousands of dollars I've been able, just in the past year and a half or 2 years, been able to redistribute to, whether it's in thousands of dollars of scholarships I give to my classes, thousands of dollars from raffling quilts, from just donating percentages of my business just in the last year and a half, which I didn't used to do. I mean, I used to give small amounts. And I think that is what you also taught me, was like, just start, even if it's $3 that you Venmo to someone or give to someone. Or I think another thing that really helped me was setting up monthly payments for redistribution, for like land tax, for therapy for Black girls and women, the Loveland Foundation, Rachel Cargill's project, just like different things that were like, what do I have access to because of my privilege?
Yeah.
And then I asked myself of like, and where am I marginalized? And then where do I want to give money? So I have like money I give regularly to like Grand Rapids Pride Center that serves so many queer teens in Grand Rapids. Whew, makes me emotional thinking about if I would have known about that. Maybe it would have saved me a couple years of being a het, you know? So I think
you were never
I was never a het. I know. I was never a het. I know. Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, so I think I was never. It's so interesting, right? I literally was like, no, I've been queer.
Well, it's funny because when we met, you were married and I just was like, yeah, Marlee's queer. I mean, I knew you were because we like dated all genders.
Right,
yeah, you dated all genders, but it just was funny. Like also because like I never met the invisible husband. Like, it was like that you had mentioned the invisible, I was like, I don't even know that I've ever seen a photo. You know what I mean? So I'm like, but anyway, we're a little bit tangentialing friendshipping. But so I just want to ask you, for someone out there who's like, man, I feel like I can't person, human.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm having issues with starting on my money stuff is disorganized, or I have a shame, or what would be your advice just for starting?
Yeah. Okay. Here's my advice, because I love that you asked this, because the disorganization is so painful. It feels as painful to me as drinking did, as when I was trying to get sober. The same sort of addiction to vagueness and disorganization, because, and this relates to everything we're talking about, is it like, it's safe to be small. I don't think that's that makes sense. Like if you want in the world where being public means you get shamed, means people critique you and hate you. Being poor and small sounds really safe and nice to me today. I absolutely still feel that. And I don't think it's the best way to be of service. So here's a big thing that I did was I got a goal. And that goal was to buy a home for me and my gorgeous fighting, beautiful girlfriend, Jackie, and our gorgeous dog, June. And I was like, well, we've got a tax problem and we've got a student loans and collections problem, and can't prove my income or buy a house with either of those things the way they are. And so it was helpful to ask for help, to get really clear on what I needed to do, to get a CPA, to get an accountant, to get a bookkeeper. And I just want to say again, I've had those things. I've had those things multiple times the last 9 years, and I fired them at some point. I was like, never mind. Actually, staying small seems like it's still working. So I'll talk to you later. And, it just hurt bad enough. It was the absolute classic. I was sick of tired of being sick and tired. And I saw in the last year, specifically in a pandemic, in like a beautiful awakening moment for racial justice in the United States, just all of these ways that my money, and not just to organizations, but to my people, to be able to send care packages, to just Venmo for lunch, to really have that exchange of mutual care. I was like, we got to get solvent. We got to get solvent. I want to make so much money that it's so easy for me to care for people. And that doesn't mean just give them money. That could mean care for people, to drive to them if I needed to, or to, I don't know, let them borrow money, or I don't know, anything.
Because it's also like, again, it's like money is this symbol. So It's freedom or flexibility, or like the other, we could talk about this a lot more, but what I hear you also saying is that what you did is you really kind of went into the belly of the beast.
Yes.
Like you weren't just like, okay, I'm going to start really small with like starting a savings account. You're like, I'm going to look at where I have the most cleaning up to do, metaphorically, and organizing to do. And I'm going to go there. And that worked for you, because this is the other thing I say when people ask me about humanifestation or going after your desires. And they're like, what do I do? Where do I begin? This is like one of the largest problems I see my students and my clients have is like, they can't choose, or they don't know where to even begin because it does feel overwhelming, or they like want so much, like it's, so what I always tell them is you do one of two things. You like assess where you are, you assess what you have the capability and the capacity to do. And you either like start really small and manageable, because you have to build up your will and you have to prove to your subconscious over and over that, yes, I am safe to put $20 away each week. Yes, I am safe to call a bill collector a week and like try to get into split payments. Yes, I am safe to, so on and so forth, like incrementally. So then your will has been built up, your belief has been reinvigorated, and your trust and your connection with your ability has been restored. Or you go right what Marlee did. You're like, I want I want this big thing, and it feels in alignment for me. And in order to get this really beautiful thing, I need to get out my scrubby brush, get out that pot, put my gloves on and just scrub away in the energy of gratitude, in the energy of gaining more clarity, in the energy of clearing away, so that there's more space for me to move in alignment with that which I want. And that's what so it's like when people listening are like, oh my God, I could never get a house. Maybe you're just in the place where you just start really small and you're like, yeah, I'm going to start giving away $3 a week to an organization or a mutual aid fund that I resonate with. And that's what I'm going to do. And that then tells my subconscious that it is safe for me to give money away, and that I am abundant because I have $3 to give away each week, and so on and so forth. So I love that you shared that. And I really appreciate it because, we'll wrap this conversation up having not even scratched the surface of what I wanted to talk to you about. But so then you definitely have to come back on. But I just want to say, like, I'm really grateful for you vulnerably sharing, because what I have noticed is people don't share like this really around money and like goals. And like, I could think that there are people listening getting activated, hearing you talk about, I want to buy a house. Like, I want to support me and my partner and my dog. And I want to be able to give more money away. And I want to feel solvent and safe and sustainable and secure and, all of these things. And I think that that's often why we don't talk about it. Like, it's still that small thing. Like, we don't want to cause any harm to anyone. We don't want to be separate from anyone. But I think that it's really important to have like references of people, like I have paid off, 6 figures in student loan debt, it's like that also feels like, oh, that could be really activating for someone to hear, right? Because it's like a lot of money. But I think we need to start having conversations about this to kind of even clear the shame, like to get the clarity,
I mean, I have been feeling lately like just say it. Like, I've been feeling really called to just say it. Like, in order to get my student loans out of collections, I paid all of them in 1 month this year, which is more money than I think my parents made in a year when I was growing up. And that I hate that. I hate that. Don't love to share it. And I'm also almost 33 years old. Like, the fact that I'm still feeling shame for actually making a pretty just comfortable, not rich person living is really saying something. And I will also just, the two things I want to say is, like, I said this in my class, like, if you're activated, gorgeous, like, go take care of yourself. See what story is coming up for you. What do you hate about what me and Sarah are saying? And let that guide you into your next actions of solvency. That might be a lot smaller. And I did that same thing when I had to call the collections where the student loans were. I wasn't like, I was like, this is going to take me years to pay off, but I guess I'll call them finally. And I called them and they were like, okay, this is the number. These are the options. And then I spiraled for about 12 hours. And then I was like, you know what? This might be a huge sacrifice to my income, but I think I'm going to pay it all off this month. And then it'll reflect on my credit score. My credit score will go up and I can make other decisions with this money symbol. So, again, I didn't pick up the call with any expectations of the outcome. I just dialed the fucking number.
I love that full circle moment. Before we close, I wanted to ask you one more question.
Yes.
What healing have you done, large or small or in between, that you feel really proud of for yourself for doing?
I mean, this money stuff feels so, and I think you use this word, but it's like, it's an esteemable act. Like, it has made me trust myself. It has helped me. I had to do a lot to feel safe. I had to get into exercising. I had to get into being outside more. Like, I had to really, it required me to up all my other care practices. And it created a lot of trust in my partnership. I think, granted, it's like sort of, it is influenced right now by a choice that affects both of us. But even more, it was really my partner getting to be like, wow, I know how long this has been painful for you. And I can see how much more you trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, I trust you. I know. And that's really been, I mean, it's kind of changed our relationship and my life.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. And I'm so proud of you. And I love you so much. And I'm so thankful for you for being so open and honest. And now we'll move on to the reading. Okay, so before we get into pulling some cards for you, I do have some messages for you from Spirit.
Oh my.
Before we hopped on, I meditate. This is actually what I do in my readings with clients, like just for like 1 or 2 minutes to tap into, if there's any messages that are not tarot related that Spirit can kind of offer up for you. It might be your guides. It might be the great spirit in the sky. I don't really know. It doesn't matter. So the first message was that there's this energy of kind of not being able to settle, like in your body, like feeling like it's hard to kind of settle into one shape or one way. And the energy was very restless. Like it was like, first I'd want to stretch this way, and then like I'd have to do this thing, and then it would like keep kind of dominoing out, right? So it's like, okay, that's interesting. Like, what's going on there? And so the message there was, number one, non-negotiable, they said, movement every day. Like taking, like they sort of were like, the reason that there's this restlessness is, and they even showed me, it could just be you like wiggling on the floor and stretching. Like, it doesn't have to be anything even that intentional. They're just like movement every day, because there's something about your energy that's quite kinetic, and it kind of has to move for things to sort of flow. And that also might be a way that you just naturally clear energy. Like, it's your like clearing energy technique. And so then the second thing they said was focused settling, like focused grounding, focused time, not doing anything, literally staring at a wall or a tree, like focused sitting, doing nothing. So it's interesting because there's these like two extremes. Like, one is like, we got to move the body. The energy needs to kind of become realigned through movement. And then also getting comfortable with beingness, just being. And that's like, and it does not have to be long. It can be for 2 minutes. It can be for 20 minutes. It's whatever feels good for you, which rolled right into their the next bit of information they wanted to share. And it's around consumption. It's around screen consumption. Yeah. So at first I checked in and I was like, oh, is it that like Marlee is, consuming too much? And they said, not necessarily. What it is it's the kind of consumption. They said what's happening, number one, there is sort of an overconsumption. Like, there's sort of like, there's kind of been a habit. It's just a habit. It's not a damnation. It's not a judgment, but there's kind of been this habit of equating like ingestion, like consumption of like other with consciousness or with just something that we do, like it's like part of us and all, but now it's not for you at this time. So they were saying that absolutely cut down on the screens, but and so there's a couple things. One was like being really careful about like who you're consuming and the quality. I know now I'm getting very new age, but bear with me. The quality of the frequency and the resonance of the transmission. So like, it's not about, oh, I can't watch TV or I can't watch movies, but it's like, if you're just in some kind of frequency that's like an echo chamber, or that's not, that's like unconsciously disturbing your nervous system, or unconsciously, or the information is speaking to your unconscious in a way that starts a feedback loop of some limiting beliefs you have in your unconscious, to watch out for that. So what they said is, what you are to consume is different media, art, dance performances, nature. And the word that just came through so strong for you right now is timeless. Timeless interaction with media, things that feel timeless in nature, because this is where your creative practice is wanting to flow. And this is where like what you're wanting to step into. And that, they suggested, is why you're also blocked with your book project. Because why are you laughing? You're
Yep.
like rude. You're like,
Yeah.
you're like,
I'm like,
fuck
yep.
you. Yeah. You're like, go to heck and hell and heaven, spirit. So what they said was, you are trying to be too much in the moment with your book, like with like the granular, the Twitter, whatever the heck it is, you're like sort of thinking about. And there's a timelessness to what you are inquiring in, that needs to be addressed and put into the structure of your project, so that it then becomes more timeless.
Wow.
So they're asking you to read like poetry from 500 years ago, Rilke, like philosophy, like Sappho, like, looking at like classic movies, classic art. Like they want you to get into that flow of timelessness and zoom out a bit, instead of being like, oh, what's that person say about that in the New York Times or whatever.
Yes.
Does that all make sense?
Yes. I mean, that is, it's just always so good to hear it in words. It's a lot of things that have sort of already been coming to me just the last few weeks, I'm really appreciative of the word timelessness. I needed that. And yeah, it makes perfect sense. I love it.
Glad to hear it. And then there's the last little bits of info they wanted you to know now. One is about moving. They said you're not supposed to know right now. Like it's not yet clear. It's okay to wonder and to look online and all of that things and have discussions, but it's not right now. And then they also said something, and this was odd, but I felt compelled to share with you, that where you're going to end up, if it's going to be more permanent, the climate change will have to be taken into consideration. So have like climate change as part of it. And then the last thing they wanted to share was about healing. And they really wanted to impart to you that they're incredibly proud of you. Like they're very, very proud of you around all the healing you've done, and that you're doing such a beautiful job, and there's nothing different or nothing more that you are to do. Like there's no like wrongness, or there's no, no more scratches or excavation. But what they did say is what you've begun doing years ago, and that they would support you to do even more, is they said to stop dancing around so much of the root and get into the root and just pull it out. And that will be really useful for you. And that was the information they had for you, my dear.
Wow. Thank you so much to all of you.
So I wanted to pull a couple of cards for you about a more specific question. So what have you been thinking about? What would you like a little bit more information about?
Yeah, I think actually let's maybe stick to this theme around timelessness, and both maybe this is too broad, but applying it to this book I'm starting to work on, as well as I think just my business in general, I'm asking that question of like how to consume less of the right now and like trust the timelessness.
Okay. So how to step more into timelessness. So maybe what we'll do is a mindset that will be helpful, a practice that will be helpful, and a greater message from spirit around why this is important. How does that feel?
Perfect. Okay. Gorgeous.
Okay. Let's see what we have here. Okay. Oh, you lucky, lucky, lucky lady. Okay. So, sometimes I'm like, I have this silly little thing I'll say to clients where I'm like, I'd pay good money for a spread like that. Like, but they're like in a reading with me and they're trapped. No. Okay. So this is one of those though, where I'm like, wow, these cards are so beautiful. The messages are so beautiful. And also in my experience, when really, really beautiful, really lovely, traditionally, in quotes, good cards come up, that's the pain point, right? That's like, I'm afraid to welcome in these energies. Like, this is something I can't trust, or these are uncomfortable. So I'm going to be curious to see how this lands and what you think when I share. So let me just talk to you about the cards that were pulled. There were 3 of them. The mindset card, you got 9 of Cups, which is a very beautiful card. The practice, like kind of what to do, what to get familiar with, what actions to take around stepping into more timelessness, you got the Sun. Yeah, I know, you're all, love this. The message from spirit, like, why is it important to really focus on this, concept that you've already been kind of ruminating on and thinking on? You got the Queen of Pentacles. Yeah, I know. So I know, right? You're all, I wasn't lying, these are good cards. So, I'll ask you what you think too, because I know that you read the cards. So for me, 9 of Cups and mindset is interesting because a lot of readers call the 9 of Cups the wish fulfillment card. Like it's this like ripeness of a rebirthing of self, of what you would like to blossom into, of really knowing what your gifts are and like focusing on those, and also it sometimes denotes a growing into or a phase that one has gotten to where they don't have to prove anything to anyone. They're like, I know what I'm good at. I know what I can offer. And I don't need to run on a hamster wheel trying to prove to everyone. So it makes me think that the mindset that would be useful to adopt is like knowing your strengths, knowing your gifts, leaning on those, not letting everyone in who maybe wants to pull you one way or the other around what they want, but like really strongly protecting those core gifts that offer you nourishment and offer you sustenance, as well. But sometimes this can be about that fear, the fear of really relying, because I'm checking it out and I'm looking at this card and it's hanging out next to the Sun, which is about shining and about consciousness and about traveling and expanding and being. And the Queen of Pentacles, which is so much around abundance and around what we define as, being safe in our body and really being able to make the most of what we have. And of course, we also know the Queen of Pentacles talks about worth and work and money and who you are in the world and how that all intersects, right? So it's kind of interesting. If I were to zoom out on this reading without any context, I'd think, okay, this is a person who, by showing more of what you most love doing and who you most love being naturally, allowing more people to see that and connect to that, you then would, 1, feel safer in your body, feel more settled, feel more at home. And also there'd be some kind of potential monetary gain to that, if that all makes sense. But my question for you, and I'll get to the other cards in a minute, is like, where's the fear?
The fear is around Yeah, it's around like unlovability or unlikability, that if I am truly dedicated to timelessness, my natural ways, not trying to prove anything to me, I'll be left behind. People will abandon me publicly and privately is almost always my biggest fear.
And so by you having some of your energy like in the moment or engaged with other people or sort of like one foot into checking out what people are into, you have that you still can have that connection to people, or
Mm-hmm.
you can still feel like you're belonging and you're accepted and that kind of stuff. Is what I'm hearing correctly?
Yeah. And I think there's a line that I tend to cross of like, there is a check in point of like, what are other people up to? I am curious. I do like connection and belonging. And then it's that consumption where I'm like taking so much in that it's doing the opposite.
That's really interesting too, because as you know, the cups are about water. And one of the lovely thing about water is how sensitive it is and how it takes everything on, right? The
Mm-hmm.
not so lovely thing about water is that you put, one tiny drop of ink in a bowl of water and the whole bowl becomes that color of ink. So I'm also wondering that in terms of your creative process and in terms of your intuition and tapping into spirit and tapping into kind of who you are, if you don't need more periods of time sort of just kind of insulated doing what it is you do, and maybe it's just more around structuring,
Mm.
or really like, I think of the Nine of Cups too as I'm looking at this card and thinking more about the concepts of the Nine of Cups, of really understanding that the time that you spend doing your, in quotes, timeless activities, which I would also mention, don't immediately bring likability, don't immediately bring money, don't immediately bring
Mhm.
acceptance because they're of you. And usually the more unique things that someone does, the longer it takes for people to accept it, or the longer it takes for the world to catch up and notice. So that, I think intuitively you're spot on, where you're like, oh yeah, like this stuff that's mine, I'm not going to get a feedback loop that I'm used to, or I'm not going to get
Mm.
like monetary gains immediately. And that's terrifying because, as we know, I mean, we're all talking about this, like we can talk about this all day long. But so I wonder if there's like, if it really is about holding sacred, maybe like one of the projects that you're doing at all time is just for you, or something you're working out ideas around this and that, and you don't need to show it to anyone other than your good artist friends, or you don't need to, you're like, this is not my money making thing. This is
Mhm.
my spiritual gift, where that I rebirth myself, and that it's my well, because Nine of Cups is very much about this deep water, this deep holding. It's my well. And the sun, of course, is all about being seen, the sun, this is the practice. So I'm also wondering if like once you get into more of a practice with the timeless creative projects that you're doing, if you do put them out there, but with absolutely no expectation.
Mm.
I mean, of course, I know you. So I think about what was the thing you did on the Instagram? You're dancing or whatever.
Personal practice.
Like that is that's so sun, right? Like you're like
Mm-hmm.
just having fun, and it wasn't for anything, and it was joyful, and it was like just for you to have that container. And and so I think that it's either time to that pick that up again, or really be like, okay, what can I do now that is in that tone, that is in that vein, that gives me so much, where I like am seen and I'm show up. And the sun also is like, you're ready to be seen in this much more core, authentic way because you've changed. So, like, you've changed. So now, how you're going to express yourself in particular artistic ways, they're just going to change too. And I think the Queen of Pentacles is this interesting tension, because when I think of her as being this like message from spirit, it's like, well, who doesn't want us to change? Capitalism. Who doesn't want us to change? People who've like thought of us in a transactional way. We're like, oh, this is this person that I get this thing from, whether it's emotional or whether it's literal, whether it's creative. Oh, this is my, this is my dance ATM Marlee or whatever, and then when Marlee becomes like, a painter or I don't, or a philosopher or whatever Marlee, whatever it is, but that's not about you. That's not about you, but I understand the kind of like fear that comes into it. But spirit is like, actually, you're going to be much more abundant. You're going to be much more settled in yourself. You're going to be much more in a space to be healed around some things around that when you do practice showing up. The sun, I also think of just like showing up. The sun shows up like every day. Sometimes there's clouds over the sun and we can't see the sun. Sometimes the sun goes to sleep a little bit earlier, but the sun shows up. You know what I mean? The sun is seen, and the sun shares, and the sun shines. So, and that Queen of Pentacles is saying there might be some safety, more safe feeling where you're like, oh, I actually can show more of me and certain aspects of me that need to be expressed and need to be shared. And maybe they will be, maybe if you have this mindset or this idea that it's not directly related to your income, it'll be less activating.
Yeah.
Even if eventually it becomes part of your income. But I think like just creating from that zone of like, this is just what I need to do for me, however that looks, I think like makes sense, And the interesting thing too, going back to the original question of like timelessness and how do you embrace that? I also think of Queen of Pentacles, the Pentacles are the longest, they're earth, and earth is the longest element. It's the element that's about longevity. So like, of course it would come in, or timelessness, like, of course. So I also think that there's this idea of literal time when you're asking about timelessness of like, oh, how much time is this going to take? Or, how should I dedicate my time? And like, the answer is, I think the more you invest in it, the more it will show, because we also know that time isn't linear and we know that time can bend. So I also am wondering, like, maybe your question could be for yourself each week or each month or each year, what are the timeless gifts that I'm offering to the future?
Beautiful.
Does that give you a little bit of ideas, insights?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So Marlee, it's just been lovely. Where can folks find you?
Well, Sarah, my website is marleegrace.space. And if you type in marleegrace.space/home, you can find just so many links to so many things I do. And I suppose by the time people are listening, it's possible I'll be back on the social networking app, Instagram, which you can find me at Marlee Grace, and you can watch my dancing at Personal Practice.
Beautiful. And we'll put all those links in the show notes. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks, Sarah.
Moonbeaming is brought to you by The Moon Studio. It is created and hosted by me, Sarah Faith Gottesdiener. It is edited by the incredible Caitlin George Parker. Additional support is by Stella Hartman. Music is by Will Owen and myself. If you like this podcast, you can support us by going to Patreon/The Moon Studio and becoming a patron. You can give this podcast 5 stars wherever you listen and also subscribe. We'd love it if you could let 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or more friends know about us, and we accept all good vibes. Thanks so much for supporting us. Witches on planet Earth, not flying off to